Hello again, fellow adventurers, and welcome back to our little home on wheels. For those of you who are new here, we're John and Karen, and a few years ago, we traded our house keys for the ignition key to this van. We decided that life after 50 wasn't about slowing down, but about finally having the freedom to speed up, or meander, or just stop and stare, entirely on our own terms. We often get asked what the biggest change has been, swapping a life of routine for the constant unknown of the open road. And the honest answer is, you discover things about the world, of course, but more surprisingly, you discover things about each other. Even after 30 years together, this life has a way of holding up a new mirror to the person you thought you knew inside and out. Today's story is a little different. It's not about a sun-drenched beach or a quaint village market, though we love those days. It's about one of the moments that tested us, a day that sits in our memory, clear and sharp as a shard of ice. I call it one of Karen's most daring moments, and believe me, she's had a few. It's a story about a mountain, a storm, and the quiet, unshakable strength I was reminded my wife possesses. So grab a cup of something warm, settle in, and let me take you to the Spanish Pyrenees. Our morning started, as so many of the best ones do, in blissful ignorance. We were parked in a small, designated camper spot in the foothills on the French side, a place of almost comical beauty. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. A little stream gurgled nearby, the only sound apart from the cheerful sizzle of bacon in our tiny skillet. From our sliding door, the peaks of the Pyrenees looked like jagged teeth biting into a flawless blue sky. "Look at that, John," Karen said, pointing with her spatula. "Not a cloud in sight. Perfect day for the crossing." The crossing. That was the plan. We were aiming for the Col du Portelet, a high mountain pass that would take us from the pastoral valleys of France into the dramatic landscapes of Aragon in Spain. It wasn't the biggest or most famous pass, but it was renowned for its views and, as we'd read, its hairpin turns. Our van, which we've affectionately named the Tortoise, is sturdy and reliable, but it's no mountain goat. I felt a familiar, low-level hum of anxiety. "The forecast said clear all day, right?" I asked, trying to sound casual as I poured 2 mugs of coffee. Karen smiled, that knowing smile she gets when she can read my mind. "Clear as a bell until evening. We'll be down the other side, sipping a Spanish red long before then. It's only a few hours of driving. We'll take it slow and steady." That's her motto for everything, slow and steady. It's a good philosophy for life, and an essential one for driving a 3-ton vehicle up a winding ribbon of asphalt clinging to a mountainside. Her calmness was, as it often is, a balm to my own overthinking nature. After 30 years, you learn to borrow each other's strengths. Today, I was borrowing her confidence. We tidied up breakfast, a well-oiled routine of clanking plates and securing latches that has become second nature. Every single item in a van has a home, and before you move an inch, everything has to be in it. A flying coffee mug can become a surprisingly dangerous projectile on a sharp turn. With everything battened down, we did our final walk-around. Tires checked, fluids good, solar panels clean. We were ready. "Okay, Tortoise," Karen patted the dashboard. "Time to earn your name." Slowly, up the big hill. I took the first leg of the drive. The initial ascent was gentle, winding through dense forests of beech and fir. Sunlight dappled the road, and the sheer beauty of it all pushed my worries to the back of my mind. We passed sleepy villages where stone houses huddled together as if for warmth, smoke curling lazily from their chimneys. We waved at a farmer on a rusty tractor who gave us a solemn nod in return. This was the romance of the road, the part everyone dreams of. The higher we climbed, the more the landscape opened up. The forests gave way to vast alpine meadows, still green even in the late autumn. The road narrowed, and the incline sharpened. I found myself gripping the steering wheel a little tighter, my focus entirely on the white line that separated us from a drop that was becoming increasingly dramatic. "Wow," Karen murmured from the passenger seat, her phone out to capture the view. Just look at that valley. We were down there just an hour ago. I risked a glance. She was right. The world had shrunk below us. The valley was a tapestry of green and gold, and the little villages were just clusters of monopoly houses. It was breathtaking, a perspective that makes you feel both incredibly large and insignificantly small at the same time. This is why we do this. This feeling right here. The road continued to coil upwards. We started seeing signs with stark snowflake symbols, warnings of snow and ice, a reminder that we were entering a different realm, one governed by altitude and unpredictable weather. But the sun was still shining, and the sky, while perhaps a little hazier than before, was still mostly blue. My initial anxiety had been replaced by a sense of exhilaration. We were doing it. Then, about 2/3 of the way to the summit, we rounded a sharp bend and saw it. A bank of cloud, dark and heavy as wet wool, was pouring over the peaks ahead of us. It wasn't drifting, it was advancing, a silent, gray army moving with unnerving speed. Oh, Karen said, her voice losing its relaxed tone. That doesn't look like the clear all day we were promised. Within minutes, we were at the edge of it. One moment we were in bright, crisp daylight, the next we were plunged into a disorienting gray gloom. The temperature gauge on the dashboard dropped 5 degrees in what felt like seconds. A fine mist began to bead on the windshield. Okay, I said, my voice tight. No problem. Just a bit of cloud. But it wasn't just a bit of cloud. The mist thickened into a proper fog, reducing visibility to maybe 50 feet. Then came the rain. Not a gentle shower, but a hard, percussive drumming on the roof of the van, as if the mountain itself was angry at our intrusion. The cheerful drive had abruptly ended. This was now a challenge. The road, already narrow, now felt like a tightrope. On my left was a solid wall of rock, slick and weeping with water. On my right, there was nothing. A void of gray. I couldn't see the safety barrier, couldn't see the drop. All I could see was the few feet of wet asphalt illuminated by our headlights. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Maybe we should pull over and wait it out, I suggested, my heart thumping against my ribs. Karen was looking intently at the road ahead, her calm demeanor replaced by a focused intensity. Where? There hasn't been a turnout for miles. Stopping in the road is just as dangerous. Someone could come up behind us. She was right. The road was barely wide enough for 2 cars to pass, let alone for one to be parked at the side. We had no choice but to keep moving. The rhythmic slap of the windshield wipers became the soundtrack to our predicament, a frantic, desperate beat. Then, the rain changed. The sound on the roof shifted from a drumming to a sharper, more metallic ticking. Sleet. It was hitting the windshield and half melting, half freezing, creating a distorted, greasy film that the wipers struggled to clear. John, Karen said, her voice very quiet. Pull over at the very next possible spot. Even if it's just a patch of gravel. I need to take the wheel. There was no argument in her tone. It was a statement of fact. For a second, my pride bristled. I was the man, I should be the one to handle the tough situations. But I squashed that thought immediately. This wasn't about pride. It was about reality. Karen grew up in a rural part of northern England where snow and ice on narrow country lanes were a fact of life for 6 months of the year. I grew up in the suburbs where the most treacherous condition was a bit of morning frost. She was, without question, the better driver for this situation. Okay, I managed, my throat dry. Just, tell me where. It felt like an eternity, but after another few hairpin turns, navigated at a crawl, we saw a small, gravel-filled notch cut into the rock face, probably for emergencies just like this. It was barely bigger than the van. I eased the tortoise into the space, the tires crunching on the loose stone. I turned off the engine, and the sudden silence was deafening, broken only by the relentless pinging of sleet on our metal roof. We sat there for a moment, neither of us speaking. We were in a tiny metal box, suspended in a cloud, on the side of a mountain. The romance was gone. This was the other side of van life, the side you don't often see in the glossy photos. It's the part that involves genuine fear and the cold realization of your own vulnerability. "All right," Karen said, breaking the silence. She unbuckled her seatbelt. "Let's switch." The act of swapping seats was awkward and clumsy in the confined space of the cab. As I squeezed past her, I could feel the tension in her shoulders. She wasn't fearless, she was just determined. There's a world of difference. Fear is a reaction, courage is a decision. As she settled into the driver's seat, she took a deep, steadying breath. Her hands rested on the steering wheel, and her entire posture changed. She seemed to merge with the vehicle, becoming an extension of it. She adjusted the mirrors, flicked on the fog lights, and turned to me. "Your job," she said, her voice low and steady, "is to be my second pair of eyes. Watch the right side. Tell me where the edge is. Don't shout, just talk to me. Keep me oriented. Can you do that?" "Yes," I said, my own voice sounding surprisingly firm. Having a job to do, a purpose, pushed the fear back a little. We were a team. This was our problem to solve together. She put the van in gear and eased us back onto the road. And just as she did, the sleet made its final, ominous transition. The pinging sound softened into a gentle, almost silent hiss. Snow. Big, wet, heavy flakes were swirling in the beams of our headlights, a chaotic dance of white against the gray. The asphalt, which had been merely wet, was now turning into a treacherous, slushy mess. We were moving at less than walking pace. Karen didn't grip the wheel tightly like I had. Her hands were relaxed, her inputs on the steering and pedals incredibly smooth and gentle. She was feeling the road through the tires, sensing the slightest hint of a slip or a slide before it could become a problem. "Edge is about 3 feet away," I said, my eyes glued to the barely visible line of gravel and grass on the right. "Still 3 feet. Coming up on a right-hand bend. A sharp 1 inch. "Got it," she murmured. She didn't break into the turn. Instead, she let the van's own momentum slow as she approached it, turning the wheel with a fluid economy of motion. I could feel the rear of the van want to step out, just for a second, on a patch of thicker slush. My breath caught in my throat. But Karen made a tiny, almost imperceptible correction on the wheel, and the van tucked back into line. She hadn't reacted, she had anticipated. We continued like this, a slow, crawling ballet of observation and response. Me, the spotter, calling out the boundaries of our world. Her, the pilot, navigating us through it. The world outside was a hypnotic, dangerous vortex of swirling snow. Inside our little cab, there was a bubble of intense concentration. "Another hairpin, left this time," I said, leaning forward to see past the sweep of the wiper. "It's tight. Very tight." As we crept around the turn, the headlights illuminated something that made my blood run cold. A section of the low stone barrier on the outside of the curve was gone, replaced by a few flimsy-looking plastic poles with red and white tape. Below it, just darkness. An earlier accident, perhaps. A stark reminder of the consequences of a mistake. I didn't say anything. Karen had seen it too. I just saw her jaw tighten for a moment. She steered us to hug the inside rock wall as closely as possible, our wing mirror almost scraping against the stone. The only sound was the crunch of the slush under our tires and my own heartbeat, which seemed to be trying to beat its way out of my chest. We cleared the corner. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Okay. Clear." "Good," she replied. Her voice was still calm, but I could hear the strain in it. This went on for what felt like a lifetime. It was probably only 20 or 30 minutes, but time had stretched and warped. We were in a state of hyper-awareness, every nerve ending firing. This was the crux of it. The part of the journey where everything else falls away and all that matters is the next 10 feet of road. There was no past, no future, only the now. The absolute, terrifying now. Then, something changed. I noticed it first as a slight lightening of the gray ahead. It was subtle, but it was there. The snow, while still falling, seemed less dense. "Karen, look," I said, pointing. I think we're nearing the top. The sky is brighter." She nodded, not taking her eyes off the road. "Don't get complacent. The summit can be the most exposed part." She was right. As we climbed the final 100 yards, the wind hit us. With no mountain to our side to protect us, the van was buffeted by powerful gusts that tried to shove us towards the void. Karen steered into the wind, her hands making constant, small adjustments. And then, we were there. The road flattened out. We had reached the Col du Portelet, 1,794 meters above sea level. Up here, we were above the worst of the storm. The snow was lighter, and visibility had improved dramatically. We could see the road sign confirming the summit and, beyond it, the beginning of the descent into Spain. On the other side of the pass, the clouds were thinner, with patches of pale, watery sky visible. We had made it. Karen pulled the van to a stop in the deserted car park of a closed-for-the-season ski shop. She switched off the engine. The silence rushed back in, but this time it was a peaceful, welcome silence. She dropped her forehead onto the steering wheel, her shoulders slumping. I reached over and put my hand on her back. I could feel her trembling. Not from cold, but from the sheer adrenaline and release of tension. "You did it," I whispered. It sounded ridiculously inadequate. She lifted her head and turned to me. Her face was pale, and there were tears welling in her eyes. "I was so scared, John." "I know," I said, my own voice thick with emotion. "Me too. But you were incredible. Absolutely incredible." She let out a shaky laugh. "Well, I didn't get us killed, so that's a start. I think my driving instructor from 35 years ago would be proud." We just sat there for a while, watching the last of the snow flurries dance around the van. The fear was slowly receding, replaced by a profound, bone-deep sense of relief and a strange, quiet elation. We hadn't just survived a scary drive. We had faced a genuine challenge together and come out the other side. Our little team, in our little home, had proven itself. The descent into Spain was almost as cautious, but the terror was gone. The road on the Spanish side was wider and better engineered. As we lost altitude, the snow turned back to rain, and then the rain petered out into drizzle. Soon, we were below the cloud line altogether, and the sun broke through, illuminating a landscape that was starkly different from the French side. It was wilder, more rugged, with deep canyons and rust-colored rock formations. It was magnificent. We found a small, designated parking area for campers nestled in a valley beside a rushing river. We were the only ones there. The air was clean and cold. As Karen switched off the engine for the final time that day, we both let out a long, collective sigh. "I think," she said, her voice still a little shaky, "that I need a very large glass of wine." "I think," I replied, "that you have earned every single drop of it." Inside the van, the familiar routine of setting up for the night felt grounding, comforting. I got out the stove to make some pasta while Karen got out the bottle of Rioja we'd been saving. As I chopped onions, my hands were still not quite steady. The events of the day were replaying in my mind in vivid flashes: the sudden fog, the slick road, the missing barrier, Karen's focused face. We ate our dinner in a comfortable silence, the only sound the roar of the river outside. The wine tasted exceptionally good. It was a celebration, a toast to being safe, to being warm, to being together. Later, with mugs of hot tea warming our hands, we finally started to talk about it properly. This is our ritual after any kind of intense experience, good or bad. We call it the campfire debrief, even if the campfire is just our little gas heater. It's how we process things, how we find the lesson or the story in the chaos. You know, I began, looking at her over the rim of my mug, I don't think I've ever been more impressed by you than I was today. I was just a passenger, completely terrified. But you were in control. You were focused. Where does that come from? She was quiet for a long moment, staring into the soft glow of our van lights. I don't know if it's control, really. It's more, acceptance. You accept that you're in a dangerous situation. You accept that you're scared. And then you just push all of that aside and focus on the one thing you can control, which is the next 5 feet of road. You just do the next thing. And then the next. And you keep doing it until you're through. She took a sip of her tea. It's funny. Back in our old life, I used to get so stressed about things that seem ridiculous now. Office deadlines, what the neighbors thought about the state of our lawn, all that nonsense. My heart would pound over a pointless meeting. But up there today, when it was actually life and death, it was different. It was simpler. Purer. I knew exactly what she meant. All the noise gets stripped away, I said. Exactly. There's no room for ego, or for worrying about what might happen an hour from now. There is only the steering wheel in your hands and the road in front of you. In a strange way, there's a kind of freedom in that. And that, right there, is the core of why we do this. It's not about seeking out danger. We're not adrenaline junkies. It's about seeking out those moments of pure clarity. It's about chipping away at the people we were, the ones who worried about lawns and deadlines, to find out who we are now. The person you become when everything else is stripped away, that's the real you. This life has shown me that my wife, the woman I thought I knew so well, is a person who can pilot a 3-ton home through a mountain blizzard with calm resolve. It has shown me that I am a person who can put his trust completely in her hands. We traded a life of predictable safety for one of unpredictable freedom, and what we found is that real safety isn't about avoiding challenges. It's about having the confidence, in yourself and in each other, to face them when they come. That night, I slept more soundly than I had in weeks. The river outside was a soothing lullaby, and the warmth of the van was a cocoon of safety that we had earned. The next morning, we woke to brilliant sunshine. The storm was a distant memory. We stepped outside, coffee mugs in hand, and looked back up the valley. High above us, the peaks we had crossed were now sharply defined against a deep blue sky, their tops dusted with a fresh, glittering layer of white snow. They looked beautiful, serene, almost benevolent. Hard to believe what it was like up there yesterday, I said, shaking my head in disbelief. Karen stood beside me, sipping her coffee. She had a small, contented smile on her face. Mountains keep their own counsel. We were just visitors passing through, she nudged me with her elbow. But we made it. And we have a story to tell. And she's right. That's what this journey is really about. It's not just about collecting miles or ticking off destinations on a map. It's about collecting stories. Stories of beauty, stories of connection, and yes, even stories of fear and challenge. Because those are the ones that change you. Those are the ones that remind you that you are alive. We spent the next few days exploring the Aragon region of Spain, and it was glorious. But every time we looked up at the snow-capped mountains on the horizon, we shared a look. A look of shared memory, of respect, of quiet pride. So, to anyone out there thinking it might be too late to make a big change, to chase a wild dream, let me tell you, the person you are right now is capable of more than you can possibly imagine. Sometimes you just need to put yourself on a narrow road, in a bit of a storm, to find that out. Thanks for joining us on this particularly harrowing, but ultimately rewarding, part of our journey. We hope it gave you a little glimpse into the wilder side of van life, and maybe a little bit of inspiration too. Join us next time as we head further south, hopefully in search of warmer weather and slightly less dramatic roads. Until then, keep living your own adventures, big or small. Live fully, 1 mile, and one incredible story at a time.